Shalom is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet Good Torah. We have Rabbi Mordecai Darvish. We got a lot going on in the world. So we have the attack by Iran on Israel the other day. Iran sent over 300 drones and ballistic missiles. We'll talk about the ballistic missiles. This is serious stuff, not the homemade Qassam rockets coming out of Gaza. My perspective is like we just saw a nace. We saw a miracle. In the month of Nisan, which is sometimes called the month of Nisim, we saw a miracle like I've heard about from the 1967 war, the 6 Day War. I mean, we saw a miracle in our days, like a 99% stoppage rate of ballistic missiles and drones. I mean, we're talking about top of military technology. We saw, surprisingly, we saw the militaries of the USA of America, France, Britain. I don't know why I keep mixing them up. England. We saw there's news reporting that Jordan and Saudi Arabia helped out in Israel's military defense. We've never seen anything like it in modern history of other nations coming to fight, at least even defensively, militarily, helping Israel out. Miraculous stoppage of all this attack. And then once again, now we go back to the craziness. I'll bring up an article. Hey, let me get your opening comments. What do you think of it all? This
Yeah,
opening.
no, it's amazing. It's the first time Iran has not done anything through its proxies, right? It's the direct shot, and so yeah, with the direct shot, you see like the interception of all those missiles. This is amazing because when we first we got out of Shabbat over here, we heard that there was 500 rockets sent over to Israel and they should be landing any moment, and like start praying and everything, and that's what we did. We started praying. We started reading all sorts of Zohar and good stuff to try to mitigate any damage. And that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Everything got stopped, and thank God there was no casualties from these
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. All right, so let me say
these
it early.
attacks.
So early on, let's just say the Bezrat Hashem, the merit of all the Torah learning we're all doing here today, it should be in the merit of immediately freeing all the hostages from Gaza. It's like we're getting distracted. Like the war of Hamas and Israel is not over. Freeing all the hostages, seeing the destruction of Hamas, the destruction of the leadership of Hamas, and now Iran, Persia, the Persian Empire, who really was behind it all, they've kind of stepped out of the shadows. They're showing that they're like the ringleaders. They were the puppet masters. They want to jump into the game. So let me bring up a share screen here. I found this is a wild article. So this is from this was very interesting. This is from, let's see, it's Israel National News. I think this is Aro Sheva. I think it's Channel 7 in Israel. And just the way the article was so funny. I thought it would be interesting to go through this article somewhat. So wait, let's see. This was on April the 15th, 2024. And it's quoting here anonymous American officials. So it's not quoting it's not quoting one. American officials believe Israel is preparing to respond to Iran's massive assault in the near future, possibly even today, the Wall Street Journal reported. So what I think so funny about it is this is the Israeli news. This is the Israeli news. They're quoting anonymous American intelligence sources, whoever they're quoting, government sources in America from the Wall Street Journal. It's like you're the Israeli journalist. Why don't you ask your government? It's such a bizarre article, right? So then both the US and the G7 have called on Israel to show restraint after Iran launched over 300 explosive drones and missiles at Israel, including cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. Nearly all the projectiles were intercepted, many by the US, UK, France, and Arab nations. That's interesting. So this article is claiming Arab nations were actively in the defense, shooting down drones and missiles coming from Iran, in addition to interceptions by the Israeli Air Force and Israel's David Sling and Arrow missile defense systems. So most people are really familiar with the Iron Dome, but the Iron Dome is only shooting down the littler missiles, like the Qassam rockets or the very like little thing shot out of Gaza. The more sophisticated systems are David Sling and the Arrow missile defense, and that's handing ballistic missiles, ICBMs. So if Chas v'shalom Iran ever put a nuclear warhead on one of these ballistic missiles, You don't know what warheads on any of these missiles. For all Israel could have known, for all Israel known, they could have had a nuclear warhead on one of these ballistic missiles. And these are the serious systems. These are more sophisticated than Iron Dome, and these are handling the ICBMs and just the shorter range ballistic missiles. So this is the serious stuff. I mean, this is big time active war. According to the IDF, the interception rate was 99%. The U.S. has called on Israel to treat the successful interceptions as a victory rather than retaliate. And several scenarios for a possible retaliation were presented, including an indirect retaliation that targets Iran's proxies in the Middle East rather than Iran itself, strikes on Iranian military targets, and strikes on the sites related to Iran's nuclear weapons program. So, right, there's a question of like, what is Israel actually going to hit back? I don't know. I mean, any comments on any of this? Or
Well, what did it say that the U.S. is calling on Israel not to retaliate and to see it as a victory?
yeah,
Well, how do you see it as a victory when someone tries to hurt you and you defend yourself against that and you successfully defended? What is that? How's that victor?
it's the madness of the Biden White House, right? It's the madness of it's the White House that freed up 6 billion before October the 7th massacre, then frees up tens of billions after the massacre. Then after 3 US soldiers are killed, gives them another 10 billion. Right, this is the madness of the Biden White House. And then right before this attack, right before the attack, right, they were demanding like no Rafah invasion, like don't rescue the hostages, don't get rid of Hamas, just give up, be defeated by them, and then just a I don't know, just a clueless understanding of how the Middle East works, where the Middle East is all about power, and it's religious in nature too. Let's bring this up to the table. Iran, the Persian Empire, they're fighting a jihad. They're fighting a holy war. Iran is not, they're not just doing this because they feel like it. They feel like, Islam gives them the domination. They feel like they're God's chosen people. They feel like they're going to conquer, the Jews and conquer all the Christians. And they want like the world of Islam, the Dar of Islam,
Right, right. Well, Dar al Islam, right? Not
Dar
Dar
al
al Har.
Islam, or the Dar al Kharab. I forgot their word for.
Yeah, why don't you explain to the audience what that
Okay.
is?
All right. So jihad is they view the world as like either the nations where Islam is already the majority religion, and then anyone of a different religion is like a dhimmi, a second class citizen. So there's about 20,000, 30,000 Jews still living in Iran, but they're like of second. They're not like they have second diminished. I don't know. I'm gonna say
They're not
diminished.
like that. They're not like the Arab citizens living in Israel.
Right. No, no, they're treated worse and they have diminished status. And like, right, just Christianity also started this. Like the churches have to be bigger than the synagogues. The mosque have to be bigger than the churches and the synagogue. It's like they have to show, they want to show that they're the dominant, religion. And then any other country that's not defeated is the world of the sword. So those are only countries that have to be defeated. So right. So number one target, or you can say
So,
number
so,
two
so, so
target.
it's every Muslim's So it's every Muslim's duty to fight with the sword to overtake it and make it into a land of Islam.
Right. So it's time to wake up already. We've been doing this for too long. So when they're in London screaming, from the river to the sea, they're not just talking about Israel. They want all of England. When they're in France talking about, from the river to the sea, they want Paris and all of it. When they're in America, in Dearborn, Michigan, thank you, Henry Ford, you massive anti-Semite, for creating an anti-Semitic, import community there. Right. That was a good gift. Thank you. Massive anti-Semite that wrote The Eternal Jew, I think was his little anti-Semitic screed that he wrote. He imported them purposely because they hate the Jews. Right. So they want to take it over at all. And in their mind, right, in the mind of Iran, in the mind, so it's the Persian Empire. It's going to be the final. So we're going to go to the Gemara pretty soon. We're going to jump in, and this has been going on for a long time. So it's interesting. I've been reading the book 10 Caesars in the Beit Kisei by I think it's Barry Strauss, and he talks about in ancient Rome, you had emperors like Trajan and Hadrian, and they were fighting the Persian Empire, what they called the Parthian Empire. And they were going back and forth. Maybe one of them conquers Armenia, one conquers it back, one conquers Syria, one conquers it back. So this fighting between what we're going to call Edom and Paras, between Edom, which is like the strength of Edom right now, the final form of the Roman Empire is America. America is the ultimate expression of the Western Roman Empire. Russia is probably the ultimate expression of the Eastern Roman Empire. But this war between Edom and Paras has been going on for a long time, and it's now in our headlines. So let me bring up this Gemara. So this is from Gemara Yuma. This is on Yom Kippur, and this is fascinating. And this is now our headlines. So let me just introduce this, and then we'll start talking about it. So it says Tanya Namichaki. So it's taught also in a brisa. Asida Paras Shatipo B'Yad Romi. Paras, the Persian Empire, Iran. It's going to fall into the hands of Rome. And who's Rome now? So the ultimate expression of Rome is the USA, the European powers, Australia, New Zealand. We can throw them all into the mix. Russia too, but it's interesting how Russia is really on the side of Paras. That's a fascinating thing. Hashem kind of split Edom. Now, where do we see that in the Torah? We see it in Sefer Daniel, in the book of Daniel, the two iron legs. There's a statue shown to Nebuchadnezzar, and the Roman Empire is it's symbolized by these two iron legs, East Rome, West Rome. But the toes are a mixture of iron and earth, and it's crumbling, and that's where we are now in history. The crumbling powers of Edom, the crumbling powers of America and Europe, and the crumbling powers of the Arab world, the crumbling powers, and Paras is one of the Arab world, right, because of Islam. So it's all crumbling, and then the stone is like the Jewish people of Mashiach coming to smash like the statue. Any initial comments, or do you want me to do the rest of the rice?
No, just keep going. Let's see where it
Okay.
takes us. So
Okay, so
so
we're
so
going
Iran is going to fall to the hands of
right. So it's good news for us in America. America, number one superpower in the world, is going to defeat Iran. Desasri Bey Kanishta. Right? Because one reason why is Persia going to fall? Because they destroyed a lot of synagogues. In the history of the Persian Empire of Iran, they destroyed a lot of synagogues. Ve'od Gezeras Melech, Hu Shigipol Bonim B'Yad Sosrim. But
oh,
then there's a Gezerah from the king. Who's the king? It's Hashem. There's a Gezerah that they're going to fall into the hands, the builders are going to fall into the hands of the destroyers. So let's talk about that real quick. So why is Persia the builders? Because
because they gave
kings,
quote unquote permission for the Jews to rebuild the second temple, and the ones who destroyed it was the Roman Empire. So
right? So it doesn't make sense because there was kings like Koresh, King Cyrus of the Persian Empire, kings like after Achashverosh, after we got done with the Purim, Mishigas, and the Megillas Esther, Darius, was the son of Queen Esther. And then he allows the rebuilding of the second base of Mikdash. So the Persians are the builders. And Rome, Emperor Vespasian, and then he sends his son, General Titus, who also becomes emperor. And Titus, or Titus, as he's called in the Gemara, he destroys the second base of Mikdash, the second temple on Tu B'Shvat, and Tisha B'Av, sorry, Tisha B'Av. So it doesn't make sense. The builders is Iran. Historically, they're the builders. The destroyers historically are Rome. But I'll tell you something fascinating. And then the Bryce is saying it's a Gezerah of the king. But Hashem says even though these are the builders and these are the destroyers are going to win. All right, what do you want to say?
no, just say the Gezer, I mean like decree of the king
Right. Yeah.
that the builders fall to the hands of the destroyers. Right. So yeah, I mean, like we have a tradition that everybody's going to be reincarnated in order to give the correct punishment, the correct judgments to each person. So the if you ultimately want to bring down the wicked for their total wickedness, so let them fill their measure, so to speak. So let them do a little bit more wickedness, right? And in which case that they fall, the builders fall to the hands of the destroyers. So destroyers can add another measure of sin and going against God, so to speak, in order to take retribution from them fully.
Hmm. Right. So it's kind of like Iran was, they were the puppet master. They were the super villain, the arch villain hiding in the shadows. And they had their little finger puppets of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and Khatib, Hezbollah, so they had their finger puppets working. but something drove them out of the shadows. Something drove them because after the assassination of two of their generals, and the general that was killed in Syria, he was one of the masterminds of the whole Hamas attack. He was one of the Iranian generals that trained Hamas to do this horrible massacre on October the 7th. And then it kind of somehow pushed Iran into the light that they're the ones behind it all. So okay, so we
Mm,
go on. So we go on here. So it says Amar Rav. So Rav says Ein ben David ba ad shetif shok malchus Romi harasha b'chol ha'olam kulo tisha chodashim. Now this is interesting. So it says, so Rav says Ben David, the son of David, meaning Mashiach ben David, the Mashiach who comes from the line of King David. He's only going to come. It's when the wicked kingdom of Rome spreads its dominance throughout the world for 9 months. And this is what's called the Chevli Mashiach, the Birthpangs of Mashiach. Right now, we're in the Ikvos Mashiach. We're in the footsteps of Mashiach. It's getting louder and louder. But this is a sign, the Gemara is giving us a sign when America takes over the whole world, and the whole world, by the way, means Israel also. And it's a little hard to believe, but when America takes over the whole world, that's going to start this period called the birth pangs, the 9 months until Mashiach is born. And they bring proof from the Torah. They say Shnamar, Lachain yitneim ad es yoleda, Yalda v'yeser achav, Yeshuvun al b'nei Yisrael. Therefore, he will give them up until she who is to bear has born. So until the woman in childbirth, meaning the pregnant woman in this case, the mashal is like the Jewish people or the pregnant woman, and we're giving birth, like in a sense, to Mashiach. Then the remnants of his brothers will return with the children of Israel. Now let me just stop the share for a second. All right, so what do you got? Deep stuff, right? That's pretty powerful stuff.
yeah, I mean, they're going to be ruling over the world for 9 months. It's going to be very interesting. Is it going to be a one world government? What do you think?
Right. So then you get into the New World Order and all that. So okay, so it's really fascinating because right, so for the whole New World Order crowd, it seems like all their major plans for world domination, they only got 9 months. And we're talking 9 months where Mashiach's coming, right? And we have a 9 month countdown where we know Mashiach's about to come onto the world stage. So it's going to be a time of great could be Chas v'shalom, a time of great persecution. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. But it's also interesting because this would be unheard of that America would take over Israel. But but what we've seen in the last few years, like what we've seen where, like, I mean, okay, let's just put all the cards on the table. COVID, if you don't know it, it was created in a lab, a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, if you haven't got the message yet. And they were initially doing the research at the University of North Carolina. Look it up if you don't believe me. Right? During the Obama administration, they thought it was too dangerous to keep doing the research here. They moved it over. I think it's Dr. Shi Zhangli, if you want to look it up. Right? That was and they locked everyone down. They knew what it was, where it came from. They financed it, right? So that's weird stuff. They locked everyone in their homes for a year. Weird stuff. And now with Biden, like, I mean, America's always been, I mean, we've had refuge here in America. George Washington personally wrote a letter to a synagogue and said the Jews are welcome here. They're never going to experience the persecution that they experienced in Europe. America is going to be different. The Jews are going to be able to freely practice, their religion here, follow the Torah here in peace. It's an amazing thing. That's not what the kings of Europe were doing. And it's been an incredible experience. And right, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the right to practice your own religion, freedom of religion. Now it's kind of been warped by the New World Order crowd of freedom from religion, right? It never really says separation of church and state. It's just that the state will never tell you have to worship in a certain kind of church or a certain kind of synagogue or a certain kind of mosque or anything. You can practice any religion here. It was the right to practice any religion you wanted to, right? And we haven't experienced the pogroms. And just now it's just so weird that Democrats and the Republicans traditionally they both supported Israel. That wasn't a big question. And now we got like this squad I mean, we got Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens coming out of the anti-Semitic closet. They're coming out of the shadows. So some of the isolationism that we saw in the days of like FDR with like, with Henry Ford, we mentioned before, Charles Lindbergh, like open anti-Semites. I hear you jump in.
Oh no, yeah, it's definitely wild. Like everybody's coming out of the woodwork nowadays. That's what it says. Chutzpah yisge, like the chutzpah, like the people's um, brazen face will come out before the Mashiach comes. And yeah, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing everybody showing their true colors. There's I don't know, maybe you could speak to it a little bit, but like there's a blurring of the lines a little bit. People saying like, "Oh, well, you could be anti-Israel but not be anti-Jewish," And listen, someone was born there, and it's kind of like hard to separate the identity from the country and like who you are and all that stuff. Because like, why would you be chanting from the river to the sea here? What do
Yeah.
you care about land territory over there? You know what I mean? What do you care about that, right? If they're your only partners over there, when the Cold War ended and Russia took the sides of the Arabs, and America wanted a foothold over there, and they chose Israel. Like, so they're your strategic partner. They're your partner there. They've been your partner all these years. Why are you saying, "Oh, let's practice isolationism. Let's worry about us. Let's worry about home and not worry about abroad"? You don't understand that the America's power comes from being that power that has its influence everywhere. Their intelligence, everything that they be as a superpower comes from the ability to be there and not be there at the same time. And to say, "Oh, let's practice isolationism," all of a sudden, why? Well, why do you care about the oppressed people in Palestine, so to speak, right? Which they're totally not. We can get into that. You're not crying over the Uyghurs in China, right? You're not. There's no brouhaha over that, right? You really care about Muslim people being oppressed, So it's kind of like it feels disgusting. It feels
Yeah.
disgusting, you
No,
know.
I think the curtain's coming down. Right. It's like I mean, we saw the anti-Semitism in the Palestinian community when we were there. We were there during the second Intifada at Aish Torah. We were there between the war. And I mean, and the news doesn't show you when Hamas or Fatah is doing the little Nazi salutes, and they're not telling you the history that the Mufti of Jerusalem, like one of the proto-Palestinian leaders, was meeting all the time with Adolf Hitler, Yamach Shemo. So the ties between the Nazis, because the way the American politics wants to paint it is there's this amorphous right-wing MAGA neo-Nazi white supremacist movement that wants to take over all America. Now, are there neo-Nazis on the alt-right? Yep. Are there country club anti-Semites like Tucker Carlson? Yep. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's all there. But I think now they're getting a little sense of like, what about the alt left, the squad, the AOC,
Oh,
the Ilhan Omar, the Rashida Tlaib, the Ayala Presley, the Jamal Bowman, are they anti-Semitic? Oh yeah. And it's dropping and the veil's dropping. I'll tell you the biggest political surprise to me is your senator there in Pennsylvania, Mr. Senator John Fetterman. I thought the guy was a total mashugana. Like he was, I thought he was part of the squad. I thought he was a progressive. And this guy's like Mr., defender of the Jewish people in Israel. He's wild. I mean, that guy shocked me. The guy's dressed like he's ready to go to a basketball game. And the guy's like one of the last staunch defenders of the Jewish people in Congress. It's wild. It's really wild. The world's crazy.
yeah. I mean, all the governments are wild. Like when we grew up, to be like a senator, to be a president, you had to be like a Rhodes Scholar. You had to be this genius. That at least they were portrayed to us growing up. And all of a sudden, you get George Bush, you know, after Clinton, and the guy's like a C student, right? He could barely put two sentences together, and all of a sudden you see all these wackadoos becoming senators and congressmen, and you're like, these people have a they're nothing special. They're off the street.
Yeah,
They're
no, that's a great
literally
point.
off the street.
No, that's a great point. I
You
think
know,
like whatever you want to say about the morality of like Bill Clinton, but I think he went to Oxford. I'm pretty sure he was a Rhodes
he was a Rhodes
Scholar. But
Scholar. Yeah, he was a
right,
Rhodes Scholar.
whatever you want to say about Hillary, I think she went to Harvard. Like, I mean, they were very intelligent, and maybe they still are. Who knows? I don't know. But right, George W. Bush was just like this good natured, like good old boy, that people really liked and was really charismatic you know. But then his vice, but 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 then his vice president is Dick shoot you in the face Cheney. It's like evil Dick Cheney pulling the strings from behind
Yeah.
and the father and George Herbert Walker Bush was not so great to Israel. He was.
No, no, no. I meant like not that anybody's great or not great because you had like Carter and you had different people,
Yeah,
being good or bad to Israel and the liking of the Jews or whatever.
yeah,
But you have people who are just like they're not intellectual. How
yeah,
did these people become part of a government?
yeah,
Government are supposed to govern, right? They're supposed to take charge and lead the people. And these people aren't anything special. They're just idiots. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think AOC was a bartender before,
yeah,
and I don't know. These people, like, all these, when they spew their hate, I mean, they're from like they're off the street. They're not like they're not people the squad, so to speak. They're not from America. Like, they're not Americans. You know
yeah,
what I mean? They haven't assimilated into the culture. Say
yeah,
what you will about the Jewish people in America, they've
yeah,
assimilated into the culture.
yeah. No,
You and
just
I like
yeah,
we like sports, right? We're into sports. We're into like the American. We're not trying to be like, hey, we're so different. The downfall of America. You have this idiot in Michigan, right, in Dearborn, Michigan, saying "Death to America." Like, are you insane?
yeah,
But it was even more pronounced when the country let a wackadoo like Obama become president.
yeah,
Why? Because if anybody knew anything, he was in the church of Jeremiah Wright, and
yeah,
Jeremiah Wright was screaming "Death to America."
yeah. It's
He was,
right.
he was screaming
That,
this way before, right?
yeah.
And he sat in that church and he listened to those speeches, right?
No, and that was maybe the boy. So just to go real quick back to George W. Bush. So even though he sounded like a good old boy, I mean, I think he went to Harvard and Yale. Like I mean, I think I think he was skull and bones at Yale. I think undergrad. I think he even went to Harvard Business School or law school or whatever. I mean, so he sounds like a. But right, but
You
then
can fake the grades, you know what I
right,
mean?
but then there
Like,
was but then there was a turn. So right, so I think Obama also went to Harvard. He is very intellectual. But then we get to the Trump Biden era. Okay. So Trump was very surprising to me. Let's talk because we haven't talked about this. Trump was very surprising to me because
why?
well, I'll tell you what, it was interesting historically because he right, his daughter, like Ivanka, is a Giorist, like she converted to Judaism, like she goes to synagogue. Her husband's Jewish, right? Jared Kushner. It's the first time you had like the first family and you actually had like a Jewish like first daughter, right? So what really shocked me is because all throughout my life, when we had a new president, the media like you had this like 100, they called it the first 100 days, and the media would ask like really like nice softball questions. Like they would ask, I think they asked like President Obama like, how wonderful has it been? I think that was the question, like how wonderful has it been like in the White House? And he's like, I can't do a good Obama impression right now, but that was like the questions. And even I think during really turbulent times, like even when you had like Lyndon Baines Johnson come in after the assassination of Kennedy, or Gerald Ford come in after Nixon was forced to resign, the media had a standard, a minhag, if you want to call it, like the first 100 days. So I was really expecting. I was like, wow, this is going to be really interesting. They're going to interview Jared and Ivanka. Maybe they'll show them like lighting a menorah, and then there'll be some nice puff pieces of like, wow, the president of the United States, he has a Jewish daughter, she was a convert, and then it became this. He's a Russian spy and he's illegitimate, and we have to throw him out. And like all these celebrities like F him, it's like it was crazy. I was like, what is this? What is this?
Right, exactly. That's
So
what we. I don't,
that's
I don't think anybody else understood what was going on either. Like, what's
yeah.
the matter with people?
I mean, we got a 10-minute warning, and then Joe Biden. So then Trump is kind of like everyone knew Trump for years. he's Mr. Casino, Mr. Real Estate Developer, Mr. Art of the Deal. It's not like we didn't know this guy, right?
Right.
And he's reality TV star, The Apprentice, you're fired. And he didn't do any of that. He said, I'm going to drain the swamp. And he didn't come in and go, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. He didn't do anything like I expected. And then he did crazy, incredible things like moving the embassy to Jerusalem, declaring the Golan Heights part of Israel. And then the American media and the establishment of both the Democrats and the Republicans are like, public enemy number one, Nazi, Russian spy, and
Right.
it blew my mind. And then the moron, the biggest moron in American politics, back, my first election I could vote in, I think it was 88, I forgot the exact year, but it was Mike Dukakis. I voted for Dukakis, by the way. Dukakis against, and his campaign knocked Biden out of the primaries because Biden took a speech from, I think it was this English politician, George Kinnock, and just did the whole speech, stole the whole speech. And this guy's been a potato head his whole life. I mean, here's another one. He calls Obama, when he was running against Obama in the primaries, he called him something like black, articulate, clean. I was like, that's the most racist, weird stuff I've ever heard. And then Obama picks that guy to be the vice president. I was like, what? And then this moron in this weird contested election is now the leader. This bumbling fool is now in charge. And so where am I going with all this? I went into this whole thing, but we can almost see an America so unstable, so out of its original moorings that it could take over Israel. They could say we're going to resolve the Palestinian problem by we have to take over Israel now. You could see it happening now. You could see the possibility of it could happen. It's not out of the ordinary.
Everything's out the window. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Like you can't use logic anymore. Like anything's fair game right now.
Yeah.
Because like you're dealing with people who are just like, who are they? They can't think logically. They're not speaking logically. So they're not acting logically. So how can you even analyze them? Analyze what they might do, what they're thinking. Where the game plan is going.
I mean, you want to talk about, there's a concept in the Torah that the heart of the king is in the hands of Hashem. There's no person we see it better with than Joe Biden. The guy mumbles, stumbles. I think they shoot him up with, like, I don't know what they give him, testosterone or adrenaline. Then he comes out screaming during the State of the Unions. I don't know. The guy's falling, mumbling, bumbling. And then like one day he's like, and then he's tough guy. He's like, Dark Brandon, tough guy. And he won't let Israel, invade Rafah and rescue the hostages and kill Hamas. And then the next day he's sending American military power to defend Israel from Iran. He's the one that financed Iran. You have no idea. And then you can't attack them back. I mean, when is this not an act of war? One nation sends ballistic missiles at another nation. This is not an act of war anymore. Yeah. Right. A Russian spy balloon flies over America. Nothing. No problem. They paid me my money this month. I don't care. It's like
yeah, exactly. I think they've desensitized the populace to accept lunacy, accept like stupidity.
Anything.
Yeah, anything goes. Anything goes. It doesn't matter.
It's 1984, complete newspeak. Anything goes. It says the conditions before the coming Mashiach, right? The generation with the face of a dog, which meant classically the dog is leading, but the dog's always looking back at its master to see where to go. So we don't have leaders anymore. We have presidents.
That's what the polls are.
Yeah,
that's what the polls are. The polls. Right? Like the politicians change their speech according to the polls. What do the people want? You know what I mean? Instead of leading the people someplace, where you had those smart people, you have these idiots who just follow the polls, and their speech writers tell them to say whatever the polls tell them to say. So it's the dog running ahead and then looking back and saying, "Oh, what should I do? What should I do, master?"
Yeah. No. Exactly what's happening. Yeah. Oh no, the Muslims are unhappy in Dearborn, Michigan, so I got.
Oh right, exactly.
I almost lost the primary.
That's exactly the point.
I almost lost the primary, so now I got to be. That's foreign policy. Whatever the poll is, my election. It's all about that moron. That Meshuggah. It's unbelievable.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
And and, and the people are also like the dog because what are they? What does the dog do? The dog, if you hit it with a stick, it bites the stick, right? It doesn't bite the person wielding the stick, right? And so that what are the people doing? They're just like reacting to whatever the politicians say, whatever the news says, whatever their idol worshiping,
Yeah.
athletes or actors or whatever they say. They're just reacting. They're very reactive, and they don't think and try to see like who's pulling the string behind the curtain. We
Yeah.
know that it's God, right? We know it's Hashem pulling the
Yeah.
strings behind the curtain. That's why we're learning these Gemaras to tell us what's happening and who's gonna do what for what.
Yeah. No, I play the game too. Like I like a good conspiracy theory as much as the next guy some days, you know. But it's just the stick. It's the dog biting the stick. It's all coming from Hashem. All the world events, it's all to get the Jewish people back, to wake us up, for us to do teshuvah, to see that it's only Hashem that's controlling everything. Right. I think it was Rav Avraham Shor today, the son of Rav Gedalia Shor. He was saying, if you don't see that that was a nace, that Hashem just stopped all those missiles, then I don't know what's going to wake you up. Like I don't know what's going to wake. That was a nace. Like it was a miracle. No, it's like during the Persian Gulf War, they shot the Saddam Hussein in Iraq. They shot 39 Scud missiles into Israel, and I think only one did damage. One person got killed, and it's the classic
He got killed
39
from a shot. He got killed from a shot.
shot, 39 Makos. It's a very Torah thing. And the news, they were making fun of them. Oh, they're the duds. They're not the Scud missiles. They're the duds. But towards the end of the Persian Gulf War, Iraq shot some of them at the American soldiers, and these things were very destructive, and American soldiers were killed by the Scud missiles. These were real ballistic missiles. These were maybe not, nuclear warhead strong, but they were strong conventional missiles, and it was only in NACE that they weren't being, hurting anyone in Israel. And the Iron Dome, Iron Sling, David Sling, it's all Hashem. It's all Hashem. It's like I one day we're going to see these missile defense systems in other countries, and they're not going to work anywhere near the percentage of what they're working in Israel. And they're going to understand more that this is not just this Iron Dome system working. This is Hashem's the Iron Dome. Hashem's our Iron Dome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just like he took us out of Egypt, right? He's our ruling angel, so to speak, right? Every other nation has their own guardian angel, and for us, it's him. It's the one master, the one true God of all of creation who runs everything. So if people want to come and mess, their end won't be good. There might be some casualties along the way, but their end is not going to be good.
Yeah. All right, we're under 2 minutes. So I don't know. Who knows? Who knows if Israel's going to blow up nuclear reactors or not? We'll see what happens. We're heading into Pesach. We're cleaning out the chametz. We'll talk more about maybe a nice video about the deep Kabbalistic understanding of Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt, the 10 plagues. That could be pretty interesting. I mean, America, Israel, Iran, there's a lot in the mix, a lot going on, a lot to talk about. Any last words or
Nah, just keep learning, keep believing in one God running the show,
yeah.
and that's it. We'll just see everybody on the other side.
I forgot to say it again. So like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff.
Gotta say in the beginning, man.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone
I
know
know.
what to do.
Put some comments down. Let us hear your opinion. Give us some comments. Let us know what you're thinking. All right, we hope to see you all again soon on Sweet and Good Torah and the Gates of Mordecai. See you soon.